First story, The Way Home. On the eve of Halloween, a silence fell over my town as if the night itself was afraid to break the peace. Holiday garlands still hung on the crooked lampposts. Jars of tangerines and jack-o'-lanterns glowed in windows. But people hardly went outside. There was a sense in the air of something inhuman approaching. I was walking home late, taking the shortest route through the old park where, as children, we used to hold scavenger hunts and play hide-and-seek. The park was empty now, and only the branches rustled, as if someone were scraping at the glass of time. At the entrance to the main alley, I noticed the first sign. A small wooden cross had been nailed to the gate, and a sheet of paper with neat handwriting was tied to it. The single word read, "Refuse." I smirked and walked on, but every few steps I found new notes. Don't look, don't open, don't come back. They were nailed to benches, trash bins, and the bark of trees. On one bench lay a faceless doll, its hair tangled, and beside it another note. She hears. My heart began to beat faster, but curiosity pushed me forward. I thought it was some prank until I reached the old fountain in the park's center. The moon reflected on its surface, and in the light I saw a silhouette that was not mine. A figure stood facing the fountain, arms hanging at its sides, the head turned in a way that made it seem as if someone had given its neck the simple ability to turn. I called out and fell silent with shock. On its neck, where a collar should have been, another small sheet was nailed, my name written on it in tiny letters. I lunged back, and at that moment footsteps sounded from every direction in the park at once. At first soft, like children playing hide-and-seek, then steady and certain, like an adult's stride. The lamplights flickered. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to hear my own breathing, and felt someone lift my hand. It was cold, as if the hand were not alive. I swore and turned. No one was there. The air smelled of candles and hospital bleach, and that sickly scent ran through me like an electric shock. I wanted to run, but my legs felt like cotton. Then I noticed another sheet pinned to my pocket. I didn't remember taking it, but the note was there, and I saw my name written not in the small, neat hand, but in a familiar, almost childish script. My own handwriting. Inside was one line, "You're on time." Suddenly a child's laughter rang through the park, pure and cruel at once, and figures approached the fountain from the darkness. They wore masks made of pumpkin rind. The masks did not hide faces, they were faces themselves. Beneath each mask was a void, as if the eye sockets had been ripped away, yet I could see someone inside moving their lips. One of them raised a hand and slowly pointed at me. I took a step back and then heard a voice. My voice, only thinner. "Nobody leaves that easily," it said. I tried to answer, but the voice went on. "You left the door open, remember? We came to visit." And when it said that, I remembered a forgotten childhood tradition, leaving a window open on Halloween so that spirits could return. We laughed then, and no one thought laughter was an invitation. The masked figures advanced. Their steps were soundless, yet the ground suddenly crackled, like dry twigs breaking. I fumbled at my pocket. The note with my name was gone. In its place was a small hole, like a fingernail mark, and it seemed to breathe. I stepped back and hit the park gates. They slammed shut on their own. The last thing I heard before the darkness closed over me was a whisper. "Now it's your turn to write." That night, only the notes were found in the park, unsigned, filled with warnings and prohibitions that repeated like a mantra, but nobody believed it was a prank anymore. Since then, every Halloween Eve new sheets appear around town, and each morning one person disappears without a trace. Second story. The old house Halloween night arrived unexpectedly warm, as if autumn itself was afraid to frost the ground. I was walking home down a quiet street where the lamps cast long shadows, and on every porch pumpkins burned with singed smiles. Neighbors laughed, children darted about in costumes, but in the house opposite, old and leaning, only one orange eye glowed, an archaic carved pumpkin on the stoop. It seemed alive. The carving was too precise, and something moved inside it, as if breathing. I stopped, and a soft whisper reached me from there, as if someone were murmuring a little rhyme into my ear. My name. At first I thought the wind was playing with the sound, but the whisper repeated, exact, and with my surname, which I had never spoken aloud. My heart raced. I looked up at the second-floor window of the old house. The shadow in the glass shifted, and a face appeared, as if made of paper without skin and without eyes. It looked at me and smiled. Suddenly, the old house's door creaked slowly open. From the depths of the porch came a figure in old clothes. She did not walk. She seemed to glide down the steps. Patterns were carved on her arms. I did not recognize the house, but I recognized that pattern, the medallion my grandfather had put in my box of things, and which I thought a trinket. It had been in my pocket until that evening. The figure raised a hand. In her palm lay my photograph, the very one of me on the beach as a child, smiling with a mole on my cheek. I had never shown it to anyone. Where did she get the photo? The figure moved her lips, but there was no sound. Her lips were mouthing my old words. I heard them in my own head. Come, open. The door behind me, my building's door, slammed, and I understood I wouldn't be able to leave if I went in. But staying on the street was dangerous. Candles suddenly lit in all the windows of the old house, and the shadows began to spill beyond the glass like streams of fog. I stepped closer, and the pumpkin on the stoop turned its head. Its carved teeth trembled, and through them passed a sound like the laugh of my childhood. That laugh, which had haunted me in nightmares, was now alive. The figure took the photograph and held it up to the light. A new detail appeared in the image. A small figure in the old house's window, the same one that had peered from the glass. It was in the background, and its gaze was directed straight at the camera. It was me, but I had never been behind that window. I realized it was a trap of time. The house eats moments, snags memories, and hides people in its walls. Like nuts in a shell, the figure stepped toward me without touching the ground. Her face suddenly shattered into many small mirrors, and in each reflection I saw different versions of myself. The one who didn't leave, the one who returned, the one who stayed. From each reflection came a whisper, my most shameful thoughts, my darkest desires, voiced in someone else's tone. I tried to run. My steps became heavy, as if the ground were coated in pitch. Then the figure reached out and spoke aloud a word I had only heard as a child under the covers, when I was crying. Stay. It slid over me, and images flashed in my head. Moments I thought forgotten, a lost love, an unpaid debt, the faces of people who stood at my birth and cried while I did not answer. They were all inside the house, and the house wanted one more. I ran. The door of my building slammed behind me, but a strange feeling remained. In my pocket, instead of the medallion, lay a small pumpkin seed. My name was carved on it. I pulled the seed out, and from afar a laugh sounded, not childlike or elderly, but ancient as the earth. At dawn, the house across the street looked empty. The door was wide open. Inside, only empty armchairs and thick dust, but on the table lay dozens of my photographs, and in each I stood by a window, and in each the window was open to the night, where someone waits to possess the next frame. I closed my eyes, and in the dark the same whisper sounded, night is a door, whoever enters will not come out the same. Third story. The hospital Halloween came, and the city, as if by agreement, sank into a quiet half-darkness. My friends and I decided not to roam the streets with fake monsters, but to go to the abandoned psychiatric hospital on the outskirts, a place even the bravest whispered about. The wrought iron gate stood ajar, and a cold light from our flashlights slid down corridors flaking with paint and lined with yellow plates showing ward numbers. The air held the smell of medications that time had not managed to erase. At first, they were ordinary details. Wheelchairs rocking against the wall, rusty door hinges, the tightly shut doors of the seclusion cells down the corridor for the most dangerous patients. But the moment you cross the threshold, the world changes. In one ward, we saw footprints on the floor, as if someone blessed with invisibility had walked the room barefoot. On the walls were children's drawings torn from memory, faces smeared with crossing lines. The silence was not emptiness. It breathed, it stirred. Whispers began like echoes and grew into voices that knew our names, our fears. I heard someone whisper, "You came back just like you promised." Shadows spread around us, not quite human. They moved along the walls, bled across the floor like coal smoke that takes the shape of hands and reaches for people. The bulbs in the corridor flickered, and in their light, the silhouettes of patients in crumpled straitjackets appeared for a moment. Hollow eyes, mouths stretched into mute screams. It seemed the walls remembered every punishment, every night without sleep. One of the doors slammed shut suddenly, and a cold seeped through its crack, so piercing that a shiver ran through the bones. We entered the therapy room where bandages and old notebooks lay on the floor. A stack of pages rose on its own and whirled, revealing smears of words on a single line. They came at night. In the mirror hanging in the corner, our reflection lagged a second longer than we did, and faces appeared there that weren't in the room, pale, with fingerprints on their cheeks and eyes that burned not with reason, but with a searing awareness. From it came a quiet tune like a lullaby, but each note sliced the air into pieces and brought on a pounding headache. Then supernatural phenomena began, which cannot be explained. In one ward, time stopped. The clock on the wall froze, but my watch started counting down minutes that didn't exist. The floor beneath our feet became as elastic as flesh. Finally, all the doors of the wards opened at the same time, and the corridor was filled with ghost figures of former patients who were haunted. They moved silently, and every touch of their cool hands left traces on the skin, old ward numbers carved over and over again. My friends disappeared into the fog, their faces turned into strange masks. We ran blindly, but the corridors changed shapes. The rooms became closer, longer, and the doors led to the same rooms over and over again. When we finally got outside, the old staff were standing outside the gate, but their faces were nameless and their eyes were empty. They nodded, as if welcoming new patients, and a chill ran down my spine. "See you next Halloween." "See you next."